How many of you are familiar with Gardner's Supply Company? So I'm going to be not progressive first, but an entrepreneur first. This is our catalog. I'm going to put them on the table over here. So before you go, if you're interested in your Gardner, I'd like you to pick one up. Gardner Supply Company is a company that has been in business 4 years, essentially. And we've grown 100% per year each of those 4 years. We now have about 25 employees, and we'll be doing about $3 million in business. And what's interesting about that for me is it's not really planned. It's not a process we're going through, watching the steps and very, very much anticipating project to project as we go along. Rather, what we're doing is bringing employees into the organization that are really committed to whatever it is we're doing at that moment. As a company, Gardner Supply Company is currently 75% employee-owned, so we're better than People's Air, we're better than Eastern Airlines. I mean, we're better than a lot of those people on the board, and we want to even be better yet. What that is, we're not sure, because right now we don't really care about structure. What we care about is the way our business works and the way that people fit into that business. So we probably spend 10 or 20% of our time working on what the literature is now calling the culture of the business. That's one of the new buzzwords, the culture of the business. We spend a lot of energy and time working on the culture of our business. And that has to do with, we called it earlier, democratic. We definitely have a democratic culture. I think, as president of Gardner Supply Company, that democratic culture is going to evolve into a democratic structure. I don't know what that's going to look like right now. And really, that's not so much the point, because I think that's going to happen over time. So one thing I really want to take issue with is form is not it, to me. It's approach, it's attitude, it's the amount of responsibility, respect, trust you introduce into the workplace. That is it. I think that democratic ownership can really support that happening. As a company, Gardner Supply Company, I'll go through just a recent experience we had. We're somewhat seasonal in that we are primarily mail order business, so we do some retail sales and some wholesale sales. And we recently got into some trouble in that we had a backlog of orders. A lot of business was coming in. We didn't have the staff in our warehouse to process them. So we started adding people on rather rapidly. And where's the target population in Burlington being in terms of economic development support is lower income single women head of households. So we just hired 5 of them. And it wasn't so much our intention to do that. It was because these women were really willing to work in our warehouse environment and they were coming to the job. They weren't coming to Gardner Supply Company, and we needed bodies at that time. What happened for us is we rapidly went from about 4 people in the warehouse to 12 people in the warehouse. And we have about 15 people full-time in the office space doing marketing and administrative and data processing, that sort of thing. And we created 2 cultures. Without plan, that's what happened. So we had a warehouse culture, which were people who were coming in and working under a certain expectation of what work is about. And we had an office culture which had a different expectation of what work was about. And we didn't spend a lot of energy trying to connect those 2 expectations. But in the process of bringing those people on and just going about getting the work at hand done, we soon discovered a tension that existed, and that tension built and built and built until we realized we had to do something about it. And so what we did is we really stopped everything, set the orders aside for a bit, and said, we have to integrate you into our business and get you to understand what it is we're about so you can really participate fully in our organization. And one of the results of that was one of these people who's been with us a month and a half is now essentially managing the warehouse of 12 people. She was on welfare 2 months ago, and now she's managing a warehouse, doing an incredible job. If I'd seen her resume, I would have never brought her in to do that job. What I think happened is the organization supported her in being successful. And that's, I think, the essence of what democratic ownership or management is for me is supporting people to be successful so that the organization can be successful. Is there anything else I want to say? Just back to my entrepreneurship role for a minute. I really don't see the difference, entrepreneurship and progressive. I think that's a really wonderful use of terms. And I'm happy to try and to personally be trying to participate in seeing how those two things come together. And there is some tension for me about that, coming from basically a capitalist mentality, now trying to see it structurally somewhat different. But Gardner's Supply Company I see as a company that can continue its growth rate of 100% per year under one condition, which is the degree to which we involve employees and attract employees and support employees in really knowing that they matter and knowing that they count in the organization. And I guess in conclusion, I don't want to say, I'm not sure that that's structural. I think that that's environmental. And it might be, and one of the things that I'm doing and Gardner Supply Company is doing is going to be working with ICA to find out if it is also structural. That is, if the form can support what we're trying to do in terms of how we do business. So I really look forward to working with you folks in that process. Thank you.
I want to start off by talking in general terms. I think most of us have been brought up to put our dreams aside as we grow up. We have a dream, but we're taught that we can't do it that way. There are ways things have happened, and we have to do it the way people have done it in the past. In the last few years, we've seen that doesn't have to be the case in Burlington. That we are able to dream about the way our community can be, the way we would like to see it be, and it can actually happen. Now, I think the same thing is true of the workplace. It's my dream that the workplace and my home place don't have to be two distinct environments. They can both be the best places for me to be. They could be happy places, they can be joyful places, they can be very creative places. And the only thing that's holding us back from making that a possibility is ourselves. All we have to do is say, okay, what do we want? And let's start doing it. And this is the way all of us at Data Systems feel. We basically want our workplace to be a place where we have real say over what happens, a place where we feel comfortable, a place where we feel at home, a place where we can play, a place where we can be really creative. And that's the main reason that we're going in the direction that we're going. And part of the feeling that goes along with that is the feeling of fairness, a feeling that really in the workplace we should have a situation where it's labor hiring capital and not the other way around. It's the labor in most businesses that creates the profits. It's not the capital that's in the business. And people's hard labor should get the benefits of that. Now, I think that worker ownership is a good idea for any business. But I can speak best of Data Systems. And it seems to be one hell of a good idea for Data Systems. Data Systems is a digital OEM. We sell the full line of deck equipment as well as IBM PC compatibles. We write a lot of software. We create systems for a lot of businesses in Vermont. It's a very labor-intensive kind of enterprise. We need some capital, but basically what we need is a lot of creative energies of all the people that are involved in the business. The way that we all can give that kind of creative energy is to feel that it's our place, that we really belong there, that we have some say in what happens and some say in the directions that this business takes. So that's one reason why worker ownership or worker co-op is really a good idea for Data Systems. Another reason it's a good idea is because we can share responsibility. The responsibility is shared among all of us to see that that business really works. And when one of us from Data Systems goes into a customer's site, it's not just an employee of Data Systems that's there, it's an owner. And what happens on that customer site in terms of programming, in terms of taking care of their computers, the person that's there doing that is the person responsible for seeing that Data Systems does the best possible job that we can do. Now, along this lines, because we all have a say in the direction that the company can go in, we can attract the most talented people, the people with the most skill. And we really need it in this area. In the area of computer hardware and software, the changes are happening almost on a daily basis. And it's almost impossible for any one person to stay abreast of all that's happening. So we need talented people in every aspect of our business. And we need to listen to everybody in the business, and we need to have everybody in the business feel that their ideas, their skills are going to really make a difference. So all of us basically feel that the company's interest is our interest. Okay, so those are some of the reasons. But still it comes down, the most important reason is that it's a great place to be. And when I go into work at Data Systems, I'm going into a place that I feel really comfortable about, and I feel that I can really do some good work there, I can be really creative, I feel very supported by the people around me, and they feel the same way. Now, I don't want to say that this means that we leave behind us all good traditional business practices. We don't. As Chris pointed out earlier, we still have board of directors, there's to some extent a hierarchical responsibility. When any one of us takes on a project for a business, we have a project manager, and there are people who work under that manager. We may each take a turn at being the project manager, but there is very clearly defined job descriptions, very clearly defined responsibilities for all of us. So, I don't know what else there is to say except that basically the idea of a worker cooperative, worker ownership, is something that's going to make any business, as far as I can see, a much better business. And what you do is you take the strengths of traditional business practices and you add worker ownership on top of that, and you've got something that really works.
It strikes me that one of the tragedies in the United States today is the lack of alternative vision. I think in many areas of governmental life, there's a certain depression in that there is an understanding that something has to happen, that something is fundamentally wrong with the society that we're living in today, but somehow or another the new ideas are not coming forward and new energies are not coming forward. What we're here tonight to talk about is a new vision, admittedly on a small scale, but those of us who work for the city of Burlington think everything starts here and goes outward. But what we're talking about here is a new vision about the relationship of people to the work that they do. Now, the fact of the matter is that many of us work 40 hours a week, or 50 hours a week, or 60 hours a week, all over the United States of America. And we've become used to the way we relate to our employers. We understand and we accept it as a basic reality that we go to work for somebody else, that somebody else decides the kind of product that will be produced, how it will be produced, where it will be produced, and when it will be produced. And that somebody else has the right to say that, gee whiz, we can't make money in this town anymore, and we're going to leave and go to the Dominican Republic where we can get workers for $2 or $3 a day. Why do we have to pay all of $4 an hour when we can get cheaper labor abroad? I, the owner, will make that decision, and you, the worker, and you, the community that used to house this company or this factory or this office complex, tough luck. It's mine. I own it. I will do as I please. And it seems to me that not only is this bad economics, but it's very bad for the fiber and the soul of the nation. Because what it does to people is it makes all of us very childlike, very infantile, very dependent on the big daddy who has the money and can call the shots. Yes, sir. No, sir. And I think what this country is hungering for is opportunities for people to feel more part of the process, to feel an ability to say, I make decisions. Little symptomatic, little example of how this works. In the city of Burlington, as some of you may know, if you drive our streets, we have planted 2,000 trees. And I think that's great. I think it's made the city a lot more beautiful city than it was before. But you know what's most important about that project? It wasn't city government that did it. Primarily, the people who planted those trees were the people who live on those blocks. And what we've noticed is there's been an extraordinary response. People take a great deal of pride in the fact that they planted that tree. And they're going to nurture that tree, and they watch that tree against vandalism. They have put some of themselves into that process. And it seems to me that probably one of the most important changes that we can bring about in the United States of America today is give people more of an opportunity to help make the decisions that affect their lives. Frankly, democracy cannot just mean the opportunity to vote for a Walter Mondale or a Ronald Reagan once every 4 years. That's better than they have in other countries, but it's not enough. I think if we have a vision as to what democracy is about, it's got to mean the right of a working person to control his or her job, to have some say about what's being produced, to sit down with the other workers and say, this is what I think we should do. And that's the way people grow, and they learn, and they don't become atomized, and they don't become alienated dummies who are there solely to make a check at the end of the week. Well, needless to say, I don't think this revolution is going to happen overnight. But I do think it's important that in Burlington, Vermont, and in cities and towns all over this country, workers and people who are interested in true democracy begin talking about these ideas. Because I think the sentiment is out there. I think people are not happy about a society where we're seeing greater and greater concentration of power and wealth. You read it in the papers every day. This gigantic corporation has just bought out that gigantic corporation. And this interlocking directorship not only owns this company, but it owns that company. It all comes down to a pyramid. We have a handful of people with the wealth and with the power. And I think what many of us would like to see is turning that pyramid on its head and giving power back to the people. I congratulate very sincerely the organizers of this event tonight. And I think and I hope very much that maybe here in Burlington, Vermont, and I think, as I understand, we are unique in being the only city in America that is sponsoring activities like this and processes like this, that maybe in Burlington, Vermont, we will strike a little bit of a spark that might spread around the country. Thank you.